If you're a fan of this channel, you know that we talk about online business, we talk about podcasting, we talk about marketing, we talk about productivity hacks and growth hacks and all these various productivity and performance related issues. But today I am a comic book fan, and I'm unapologetically one. And so we are going to talk about the Justice League Snyder Cut. Okay, so let's start with the obvious. This is a long movie. In fact, it is twice the length of the theatrical cut, aka the Justice League back in 2017.
Do you bleed?
But here's the thing, and I think you're going to find this if you're a comic book fan, and even if you're just a movie fan in general, you're never going to feel like at any point in time it drags. There's always intention. There's always a purpose and a reason behind every single scene. It's an elaborately told story, but it's told in a way that keeps you on the edge of your seat. So, for example, I think some of the characters that benefited the most from this versus the Justice League was Cyborg. So I give a shit about Cyborg now. Like, I want to see a Cyborg movie. I understand why Ray Fisher was so upset after the Justice League because, honestly, he was just a booyah character that didn't do anything in that movie and was just kind of there. Same with the Flash. The Flash was just there to just tell jokes and basically just be the inserted, Marvel quippy guy. That it didn't work. Like, it's great for comic relief, but there also needs to be some intention and some purpose. And there's some amazing, honestly, some of my favorite scenes in this movie are the Flash scenes. The scene where he meets Iris West, and it's just this slow-mo, although they did steal from Quicksilver, I will say, but it's still cool, and they did it in their own way. It just really worked. It really fit for who he was and what he's doing and the purpose and his father and all these various things. And then there was a brilliant tie-in with Flash at the end where it comes down to Flash. The end of the world arrives, and only Flash can do something about it. And honestly, it's a tearjerker moment, and I say that with all the feels in the world and no shame whatsoever. But when Flash gets ready to go faster than the speed of light and reverse time to kind of undo the unity of the three mother boxes, honestly, tearjerker moment. And he calls back to like the purpose behind with his dad and criminal justice and all these various things and, your past and your future. And it's just such a brilliant, the visuals, just everything around it. I can't imagine seeing that scene in IMAX, how incredible that would have been. And there's things like that I just don't understand what Joss Whedon was doing. Like, it has to just be hubris and ego, where a director comes in, you have 4 hours of movie that has already been filmed, basically, right? Like, I don't think they spent a significant amount of time doing any kind of other shots, to lead up to the release of the Snyder Cut. So Joss Whedon literally took 4 hours worth of movie and was like, that's crap. Like, another example is Wonder Woman at the bank scene at the beginning when the guys are trying to, shut down and, blow everything up or whatever. Like, that scene was so epic in so many ways. And like, they cut all the good parts out of it in the Justice League. Like, even the part at the end where she says to the little girl's like, no, I want to be like you, or when I grow up, she's like, you can be anything you want. Like, if you know anything about Wonder Woman, that is vintage Wonder Woman. That is exactly what Wonder Woman would say. And it just makes her so likable and so like, taking that out of the movie is just such a disservice. It does it so much injustice. That I just don't understand what Joss Whedon was thinking. He just ruined a lot of the characters for me. Even Batman, which, again, I'm a huge Batman. Growing up in high school, my car literally resembled the Batmobile. I had a 96 Ford Probe and I retrofitted it, and people literally, my classmates and my friends, called it the Batmobile. I'm a huge Batman fan. As you can see, my Red Hood shirt here. Batman was kind of like a punk the whole movie. Like, he had no plan other than just walking around like a wounded dog after he almost kills Batman or Superman in Batman vs. Superman. Then all of a sudden now he's like, we need Superman. We need Superman.
We make it through tonight. You can stay in the shadows forever. Dress up like a bat. I won't even sue.
Any version of Batman throughout any universe in the DC comic universe would never be that reliant. Like, he would go to the opposite just because he's that stubborn. Like, Batman is literally that stubborn. He would never acknowledge that. Even if he knew it to be true, he would come up with some other plan. So when the plan presented itself, then Batman's like, yeah, we should do this, right? But it wasn't the whole time like walking around with a dog with his tail between his legs, like just crying about the fact that Superman wasn't there. And like, that was his whole purpose. And then the cringiest line ever in Justice League is when Superman comes back and basically just owns him, and Batman's just like a little punk, and he just like, picks him up by the neck and is like, do you bleed? Throws him, and then Batman's like,
yeah. Oh, something is definitely bleeding.
And it's like, oh my God, that was such a cringe, like, Joss Whedon Avengers moment. And I just feel like I need to apologize to Zack Snyder. That's my general takeaway is this. And the reason being is this. if you go back to Man of Steel, which I happen to like, by the way, like maybe, okay, you can take some issues with the end and how everything was just kind of like, it was like the gingerbread house is just everything collapsing and whatever. And like, I get that they're the complaints around that. Maybe you don't like the Dragon Ball Z animation where he's just zipping around and this and that. But at the end of the day, and I remember telling this to my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, like I remember telling her, we left the movie theater, I'm like, but he's the most powerful being in the universe. Like you have to make him to the point where it feels like he really is that powerful. And he could do that kind of damage. And you're talking about him versus Zod. And so it made sense. And then I loved how, I feel like it was totally redeemed when you get to Batman vs. Superman, that literally the end of Man of Steel ties into Batman vs. Superman. And it gave Batman a reason for why he was after Superman, why he realized the existential threat that Superman was. So it just gave it purpose in such a way that it tied together brilliantly. But then what I really discovered, and this is where I should apologize again to Zack Snyder and why I'm working towards my full apology here, is Batman vs. Superman, the director's cut, is actually a really good movie. Like, it's actually a real, like, okay, you can take your issues with the
Kill Martha. What does that mean? Why did you say that name?
You can take your issues with that, but at the end of the day, here's the deal. Like, for one, that was such lazy writing for the DC writers back in the day to name them both Martha, so I get why Zack Snyder took advantage of it. But it was an elaborate story, and it really, the director's cut really built Lex Luthor to be the genius mastermind that he really is, to have this whole elaborate scheme about building them up against each other and like all these intricacies in that story. And so if you don't see the director's cut, if you only see the theatrical version, you're like, oh my God, it just felt so rushed. It felt really crammed together. Like there wasn't a lot of purpose behind things. It didn't really expand upon some of the ideals that it had that really made the story worth telling and made the movie worth watching. When you see the director's cut, I remember I felt before, I'm like, okay, I see what he was trying to do, and I like this movie now. So I should have known that by this, it would probably be the same thing. But here's the thing. You talk about somebody building to a crescendo, right? Batman vs. Superman, fine. I liked it. I loved the Snyder cut of Justice League. I loved it. I didn't just like it. I loved it in so many ways. To me, it is like the ultimate comic book movie if you're a true comic book fan. I would put it up there, and I've been really struggling with this. I would put it up there with The Dark Knight. I really, really would, and I don't think that's just me being fresh in that perspective. I think one thing about the Nolan universe is the choreography really wasn't that great, if we're really being honest. Like, the storytelling was fantastic. I love what they did. The character development, like, it was a brilliantly told story. But the choreography and the fight scenes, like, what ninja doesn't ever kick? Go watch The Dark Knight. Batman literally kicks, like, one time, if that. So it's just the fighting and the choreography is just really slow and robotic, and I just don't feel like that's an area where Chris Nolan really excels. If you look at Justice League, the Snyder cut, it's the ultimate synchronization of great storytelling, great character development, which I'll be honest, I didn't think Zack Snyder had in him. I really didn't. I always just joke and say that Zack Snyder couldn't tell a bedtime story in less than 5 hours. He told a really good story. On top of that, the fight scenes, the use of slow-mo, yeah, sure, it's excessive, and yeah, sure, his filters, and yeah, sure, the aesthetic of a Snyder movie and what have you. It has its own unique feel. It's like Michael Bay. Like, you know it's a Zack Snyder film just by looking at it for 2 seconds. But it just was amazing in so many ways, especially some of the Wonder Woman scenes. I mean, she's just such a badass in so many ways. It just redeems all of the characters. Like, there are things that Cyborg does in this movie that, honestly, even being a huge comic book fan, I'm like, oh yeah, Cyborg could do all those things, and that's really powerful. Specifically now going into the digital age, where, like, technology is at the center of our universe. Like, imagine Cyborg and the disruption that he could do to our world in 2021. Like, he may be the most powerful one of all, just given the manipulation he could do to currencies and technology. I mean, he could literally shut down our phones and everything. Anything he wanted, he could be the ultimate hacker in so many ways. And so that was felt. The choreography was felt. Like, even the end scene with Superman coming back and just straight up, which, by the way, was paid huge homage to the comics when Steppenwolf blasts him with his axe and he's just like, not impressed. Like, that's literally taken directly from the comics. So I love that Snyder is so committed to the comics. He's committed to the source material. But I just don't understand. Like, it's almost like Joss Whedon and Warner Brothers wanted to give people the opposite of what they want, right? Like, everybody wanted the black Superman suit, the mullet, the beard. And so they're like, we're going to do the opposite. We're going to we're going to CGI away the facial hair, which was the perfect opportunity. The guy's been literally buried in the ground. Like, why would he not have facial hair? Like, who comes out freshly shaven without stink breath and smelling like a billy goat after being buried for however long with long hair? Like, that just makes sense. But then they have him come out in Justice League and he's just like regular old Superman again. He's just back and ready. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's like they just don't care what the fans want at all. And I just don't, like, I don't understand that. I don't understand. And even now, like, when this movie comes out and the trending is crazy, like, hashtag restore the Snyderverse is going nuts. Or, you know, it's, I don't understand why they just won't commit to giving autonomy and, like, just doing something different, right? Like, you don't have to be Marvel light. Like, you don't have to be Mickey's Heroes 2.0. Marvel's done that. They've created an entire universe around doing what they do. Like, just be different, right? And so my 2 cents don't matter. I'm just a guy with a YouTube channel just talking randomly about stuff. And so I'm sure there's a lot more to it than what I am aware of politically and stuff like that within the organizations. But if it were me, I think they have a great opportunity. When you watch this, and I challenge you to do this. I've watched the movie like 4 times now, which is ridiculous. Like 16 hours of my life is in this movie. But what I would do is this. When you watch it, it watches like you're binging a Netflix series. Like, each one of those chapters or parts in the movie, you could theoretically say is like one episode of a show. So what I would do if I were HBO Max, I'd be like, okay, Warner Brothers, you don't want this? We're going to create like a Game of Thrones type show, right? And that's going to be called the Justice League, okay? And then everything that kind of like breaks off from that. So say you want to do a Flash movie, you want to do another Aquaman movie, you want to do a Wonder Woman, you want to do Man of Steel follow-up, you want to do a Batman solo film with Ben Affleck versus Deathstroke, which I'm really... The fact that that's not going to happen, guys, is devastating to me. Like, that feels so amazing, especially after the end of this movie. It's just like, that has to happen. Like, that Joe Manganiello, I think I said his name right. Like, that feels so legit in so many ways. And I heard there was going to be like Arkham Origins, where it's just like crazy fight scenes with the choreography that Zack Snyder does. Guys, that was going to be just epic, right? But you could do those solo movies, those solo adventures, and have reasons that all tied back into the Justice League story arc, right? Like, you could still do the expanded universe on the big screen, but then have it, and this is a huge missed opportunity, and here's the deal, while Warner can't get their ish together, Marvel's over here doing it. So they've got Falcon and Winter Soldier, right? They're still going to tie into the cinematic universe, but they'll also be in the TV series. Like, that's the opportunity, is to have something like team-ups inside. Now, of course, you could have a team up on the movie theater or whatever, but I think starting there and having like a really elaborately told story, let Snyder just have the full reign on HBO Max, like really tell long stories, that's fine. Have 10 episodes that are an hour each or whatever it is you want to do, really expand on the story, but then you have your solo films that go separate from that, but also interweave back into the storyline you're telling with the Justice League TV series. So that's my 2 cents. That's what I think that they should do. I think they have a huge opportunity here. I think, honestly, restore the Snyderverse. I was way down. I apologize, Zack Snyder. I apologize. I am not worthy. You had a vision that I did not see. I can't believe the vision. Like, all I want is my directors to care. I just want them to care about the characters as much as I do. Like, I love these characters. I love everything about them. I grew up on them. Most of us are, that's the case, right? We love these characters. We just want to see them done justice, pun intended. And so when I see that being done, I can overlook a lot of the flaws. Was it a perfect movie? No, it's not. Like, it's not the perfect movie. There are things, like there are scenes that are really long, like the girls, the singing to Aquaman when he leaves. It's like uncomfortably long, or like randomly an epic Zack Snyder moment where like Aquaman's coming out after he saved that guy and he's drinking the whiskey or whatever out the bottle, and it's like this weird intro of like this song that makes no sense. It just is kind of like forced into there. I feel like those are like all like epic Zack Snyder things where I'm like, okay, it's a Zack Snyder moment, like I get it. It's probably way too long. So like there's things that I don't like about it, but albeit very, very few, and it's so good in so many ways, and it tells such a great story. I love the seriousness. I love everything they did with all of the characters. I truly love these characters again. After Justice League, I'm kind of like, I don't care. Like, I don't care if they make another movie. Like, I'm ready for this to be over. I'm ready to reboot. Let's see what Robert Pattinson does. Let's see what they do with the Batman. Like, that looks like more up my alley, right? And then Wonder Woman 1984 was just such a letdown. I feel like they totally redeemed Wonder Woman in this too. Like, the badass where they use like kind of like the Troy theme music for the Amazons, where it's, I can't imitate it, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Like, her music was serious again. Like, she was serious. She freaking cut Steppenwolf's head off. Like, all of those things are just things that are so true to these characters in such a way. It made me reinvested in such a way that if we don't get a sequel to this, or at least some connection to this in some way, it is going to be such a letdown. So I hope Warner Bros. Is listening. I hope you guys as fans continue to hashtag whatever it is we have to do. We have to do it the old ways. We have to hashtag and continue this. At one point in time, the Snyder Cut was never going to exist. It took 4 years to get there. The support right now, honestly, stream it just for the sake of streaming this movie. Like, literally just turn it on when you're going to bed, just so we show those numbers that people want to see this movie, because I'm confident that somebody's watching, whether it's HBO Max or somebody. I know AT&T, kind of the parent company of all this, is like, hey, we're going to release a Snyder Cut. So there are more pieces in play than we even know about. The biggest thing we can do is show our support. But I am sorry, Zack Snyder, you created a masterpiece as far as I see it. I think I've seen a lot of Zack Snyder movies. To me, I think this is my favorite of the movies he's done. I think he really, really did a good job. I would have loved to see an actual theatrical release of this version of the movie in IMAX. It would have been incredible. I think it just would, in so many ways, just would have been just such a masterpiece, even more than it already was. If you haven't watched the movie already, I don't know why you watched this whole video, because this was filled with spoilers. But if you haven't and you want to go back and watch it, now you kind of know what to look for. All right, next video, guys, we're going to be getting back to the matter at hand, which is business on this channel. So got to button up and get back to what it is that we do on this channel. But I hope you enjoyed my review of the Snyder Cut.